in the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Soup News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Soup News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Soup News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Soup News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Soup News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
Hello, and welcome this busy Monday morning to Market Insights. It's the start of a new week. I am Lavina Emma. Now, recently, the National Bureau of Statistics said Nigeria recorded a 1.4 trillion naira trade deficit between October and December 2023. So what is a trade deficit? So a trade deficit is when a country's imports exceed its exports during a given period. So this means what a country is buying in terms of goods and services are more than what the country is actually selling to other countries. So this situation came up during the fourth quarter of 2023, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. So these are the figures. So from October to December of 2023, Nigeria's exports totaled 12.69 trillion naira and total imports stood at 14.11 trillion naira. So this indicated a 1.41 trillion naira trade deficit. So this situation has led to a lot of concerns about the balance of trade, domestic production, and the strength of the country's currency. Meanwhile, it's not just this situation came up during the fourth quarter of 2023. So as at the third quarter of 2023, Nigeria had a trade surplus of 1.31 trillion naira. So meaning the country's value of exports was actually wider or larger than that of our imports actually, which is actually good. So we had trade exports of over 10 trillion naira, and our imports was 9.04 trillion naira. That's why we had 1 trillion naira higher than the imports. So on today's show, actually, we're going to be talking about this whole situation of our trade deficit. And by the fourth quarter of 2023 was when this situation changed. The trajectory changed within Nigeria's trade recording as the value of imports outweighed the value of exports. So we're going to discuss what led to this trade deficit, and after that, what are other issues that we can use to solve this trade deficit situation. So join us after the break.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State, on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande. Suk Enlightenment.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching
Suk News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the light different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Suk News. You don't touch that dial.
I'm okay.
My name is Raymond Bola Brown.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Suk News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Suk News.
Shout out to Suk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Suk News. Here's the Suk News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Suk News. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. So before we went on the break, I was talking about what has led to Nigeria's trade deficit and why do we currently have a trade deficit of 1.4 trillion naira. So we're going to be discussing this morning with our guest as to how we can actually improve on our exports and how we can actually reduce importation of foreign goods and services into the country actually. And then the situation, how would this affect our national currency? Yes, we know at the moment the naira is really being devalued, and it's currently 1,600 naira or more against the dollar. So this has been going on for quite some time. So if we can actually go back to the way it was before the year 2023 ended and we had more of a trade surplus, that will be better. So joining me to discuss this is Mr. Ugochukwu Ogueke. He's my guest, joining us via Zoom this morning. So he's the head of operations at Zikin Norma Nigeria Limited. Welcome to the show, Mr. Ugochukwu Ogueke.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes, I'm happy you're here with us this morning. Thank you for joining me this morning on Market Insight as we discuss balancing Nigeria's 1.4 trillion naira trade deficit. Now, how can Nigeria increase its exports and reduce its imports? Actually, like I mentioned earlier on, we currently have a trade deficit of 1.4 trillion naira, and we've had this situation started from the fourth quarter of 2023. So how can we work on increasing our exports and reducing imports? Yes, Mr. Ugochukwu.
Okay, you know, it's funny that based on MBS. That statistics was captured from Q4 2023. And you would see that represents the peak of our productivity as a nation. And just at that moment, we're still experiencing a decline, in exports in relation to import of over 14 billion. So, and if you look at it, some of the factors impairing our ability to export products out of these countries are basically standardizations. We've got a lot to do in terms of production and then packaging of our products. A lot of it's not like our people are not trying to export. They export, and many times they suffer severe damages because these products are not able to pass basic quality check parameters. And so we can approach it two ways. One way is to improve the standards of our production, and then produce policies that encourage export of these goods. Or we can look within to try to drive down the rate of import. For instance, there are several things we import into Nigeria that we have no business importing. If only the government will look in. So again, I would want to approach this from the place of from place of policy frameworks that are not encouraging. They are not sufficiently encouraging to allow for local productions in the country. So let me take for instance. Nigeria is currently importing. I mean, the news has it Nigeria has given license for the import of maize. Nigeria imports rice. The current administration has lifted the bans on several items, over 45 items that were on the import restriction list. All of those bans has been lifted right now. And we know in terms of competitiveness, we cannot compete with some of our Western counterparts. With respect to cost of production, unit cost of production, because they have scale, they produce relatively cheaper than we do. So, you can imagine that we're importing maize into Nigeria and the landing cost is cheaper than what we currently have in our domestic market. It simply means that we've not done enough to encourage or enhance the effectivity of our local content or our local producers. So we want to first of all approach this from a policy perspective. The government has to do more, to create an enabling environment to allow our people to produce. Part of the challenges plaguing production in Nigeria is logistics. 2, quality inputs. 3, there are several issues plaguing us, from cost of finance, to logistics issues, to technical know-how, to mechanization and all of that. So Nigeria is heavy import dependent. We are still heavy import dependent. And the little we produce in Nigeria does not meet the quality parameters to be taken outside of this country. In fact, to be able to export, you have to be involved from the production upwards down to when it is shipped out of this country. Or otherwise, you risk losing all of your invested finances. So I think we should look at driving down import by looking inwards and seeing what we can do to enhance productivity, and then focusing again inwards to see how we can improve the quality of what is being produced, and thereby meeting the international market demands. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you for that, Mr. Ugochukwu. Yes, I understand what you have said. We need to improve on our local production. I also mentioned that we have issues with, in terms of producing locally, in terms of logistics, finance, and also the technical know-how. But we also know that in this country, we have some very creative people who are also quite hardworking. If you talk about technological know-how, people who want to create things, it could, from food items to raw materials to other things that can be exported, that we can export to Western countries for them to use there. But when you say technical know-how, I feel Nigerians are very creative and we have the knowledge to actually create things of standard quality that we can take out, we can sell out, and we can get back money to our country, actually. So why do you, I just want to actually change that perspective. And then I also want to say that because we have these issues, don't you think it's more of the government not encouraging the citizens in terms of our technological abilities and our abilities to be very creative in creating very standard products that will enable us to sell our goods and services out there? Yes, Mr. Ugochukwu.
So you and I probably, I answered the question you threw at me. You're talking about trade deficit. So you're talking in terms of Naira and Kobo. You're not talking in terms of volume. If you're talking in terms of volume, we're not doing badly in terms of volume export. Because if you look at volume export, then you look at what are we exporting? Are we exporting raw material or finished product? Nigeria is still in the business. We are still at exporting fancy. We are still exporting raw materials. Nigeria is not exporting refined petroleum products, we're exporting crude. In fact, of recent, it's so embarrassing, our country is currently importing crude. Dangote refineries are currently importing crude, you know? I mean, so we have one of the best crude in the world, but we're currently importing crude. So if we're talking about trade deficit, and that trade deficit, we're talking in terms of money. We're talking in terms of 1.4 trillion, 1.4 trillion. That's money. We're not talking volume. So in terms of volume, yes. But if, take for instance, Nigeria exports cocoa. We export maybe say 1 million metric ton of cocoa. How many containers, how many kilograms of chocolate do we need to import into the country to cancel that out? How many chocolate manufacturing plants do we have? We have the few factories in business currently exiting. The cost of power is outrageous. The cost of logistics is outrageous. The cost of doing business in Nigeria generally is outrageous. We have high cost of finance.
Still going further to explain how we can actually get out of this trade deficit situation. Actually, he'll be back with us in a few moments. Okay, yes. So, yes, Mr. Ugochukwu, I'm still here with you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the cost of finance is about the average commercial lending rate now is minimum 30% in Nigeria. So if you want us to produce, if you want us to
I understand everything.
If you want us to manufacture products in Nigeria,
what
right?
policy measures do you think that the Nigerian government could implement to reduce this trade deficit? Yeah, I said what policy measures can the Nigerian government implement to reduce the trade deficit? Yes, okay. Yeah, we're having a bit of a technical issue with Mr. Ugochukwu, but we'll still soon be back with him. Yes, he actually mentioned. Okay, so welcome back, Mr. Ugochukwu. Welcome.
Yeah, sorry about that. Network's a little bit unstable. If we are having conversations around trade deficit, you've got to understand is the value of what we are exporting versus the value of what we are importing. We're exporting crude and importing refined petroleum products. Those are not on the same level. We're exporting cocoa and importing chocolate. They are not on the same level. We're exporting timber and importing toothpicks. We are exporting rubber and importing tire. We're exporting. So you've got to look at our export in terms of volume is small. But when you talk deficit, you're talking in terms of money, all right? You're talking in terms of value. So we would naturally have those deficits because we do not have value addition ongoing in Nigeria. And if you want to increase your earnings, then you must increase in the output of value. It simply means we need those industries working again. And to have industries working, you need energy. It's part of the reason why what His Excellency Dr. Alex Oti is doing in Abia State is highly commendable. You must solve the epileptic power challenges we have to have industries, you know, in business. You must solve the cost of finance. Nigeria is currently having forex issues. We've been having forex issues for a while. That does not encourage investors, institutional investors to come in, because the problem is we bring in our dollar and we can't take it out. All right. That problem has to be solved. And the one way we solve that focus on value addition, then you must begin to look at the infrastructures that support those. You must look at subsidizing energy. Everything in Nigeria right now is without subsidy. Power is without subsidy. Petrol is without subsidy. Gas, diesel is without subsidy. You're taking subsidy off everything in the nation. And so it's not a business-friendly atmosphere. It's little wonder that businesses are exiting the climb. And if what then that reduces your economy to is a and as long as you are consuming, you're going to continue to have that problem cannot be solved by the private sector alone. That problem led by the government by putting in place policies, by putting in place policies and putting the required.
I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Can put in place to reduce the trade deficits. What kind of policy measures can the Nigerian government put in place to reduce the trade deficits?
So take for instance one, before we begin to talk about policy, the policies must be sustainable, all right? So first of all is to begin to introduce policies such as export policies on raw materials. Nigeria can come up with a policy to ban the export of raw materials and begin to insist on export of only finished products. Take for instance, the Nigerian government can cause all of the chocolate manufacturing companies, the sneakers and the rest of them, to have subsidiaries in Nigeria. If they can't have access to our raw materials, then they should come produce and manufacture from Nigeria and export to other countries. That way we attract more values. You know, if Nigeria begins to insist on the export of refined petroleum products rather than crude, then we have earnings coming into us. It will begin to insist on the refining of mineral resources such as copper rather than exporting of the raw mines. Then we can earn some more. All right. In that way, we can quickly balance out our trade deficit. But as long as we continue the export of timber, the export of raw food materials, then the future is very much determined. We will continue to import refined food products, refined material products. We'll continue to import refined petroleum products. We'll continue to import refined. We'll import every other thing. So we must begin to put policies in place that bans, first of all, the export of raw materials, and then place a lot of emphasis on development of local content. Take, for instance, if Toyota wants to sell in Nigeria, there's nothing stopping the federal government from putting back the national center in Abuja back in form and saying, oh, come and assemble here. We're not going to be importing Toyota cars anymore. If Toyota cars must sell in Nigeria, just like what India is doing with Tesla, they're saying, we're not going to let you bring Tesla. If you bring it in, we're going to place heavy import duties on them. It will not be competitive in our local market. You want Tesla to sell here in India, will represent a huge market. Come establish your plant here. And when those plants are established, you want to say, okay, at your management level, we want at least 50% local content, which means at the management level, you want to have at least 50% Nigerians running the show. If they do not have the capacity, train them, empower them, and put them there. That guarantees that long after you are gone, we're still in business. Okay, so our government must begin to take bold steps and stands towards ensuring local production. But we are not doing very much when it comes to that. So I think, like I said, in the areas of logistics, I see the government taking some bold steps, but there's much more to be done. So those policies must be in place to drive compliance.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Ogochukwu. So what are the potential economic consequences of this Nigeria's trade deficit? Yes, we know in terms of job creation, we've been affected by that in recent times. And also, like you mentioned, in terms of our foreign currency exchange rate, so that's also an issue. But what are the economic consequences of this trade deficit? How does it affect the Nigerian economy?
Well, you basically mentioned it. Those two are sufficient. It will every day the naira is you are losing money, I am losing money. It simply means that, right, is unable to buy, because you must look at for value. So the money has a special value, but then there is a value that is attached to that money. Take a dollar was going for 480, today is going for 15. It simply means if I got my phone 100,000, the same phone is going today for 400,000. That's the official value of that money. I have 100,000 in my account. I can no longer buy a phone today, even though I could afford one yesterday. So what has happened? I've lost money, and if I'm losing money, Nigeria is losing money. So if we are unable to fix this current trade deficit, what then happens is that we import more and more and more. And the more we import, the more dollar we demand. The more dollar we demand, the more we devalue our currency. The more we devalue our currency, the more the multi-dimensional poverty that is ravaging the nation. It gets bad, and then we begin to paint a scenario like the scenario Zimbabwe once was in, all right? Where you have money and you can't buy anything. At some point, people are going to have to reject the money because it has no value in it. So we lose our national wealth. These are the consequences: multi-dimensional poverty, people unable to live, and people sleeping below the poverty index nationwide. So this, the government must begin to look critically at it. I know that no decisions at this point that will be easy. People are going to hard times call for, so if this continues unchecked, we're some turbulent times ahead. It has to be arrested.
I do hope so. It will definitely be fixed as soon as possible, because yes, we know the Central Bank of Nigeria, the governor has been saying that they're putting measures in place, but we just hope these things can be done as quick as possible. Okay, so let's go on a quick break now. When we return, we're still going to discuss further with Mr. Ugochukwu concerning the Nigerian trade deficits. Join us after the break.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi.
My name is Etemari Glover.
Naomi, well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Experts Troll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souk Enlightenment. We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
Welcome back. So I'm still talking with my guest via Zoom, Mr. Ugochukwu Oguike, concerning how to balance Nigeria's trade deficit and how we can return back to our status of trade surplus. So Mr. Ugochukwu Oguike is still my guest via Zoom. So are you here with us, Mr. Ugochukwu?
Yeah, thank you.
Discuss further on how we can balance how we can balance our trade deficit. So I want to actually ask you this. Now, how can Nigeria address the underlying structural issues that contribute to its trade deficit, such as our dependence on oil exports and lack of diversification in the manufacturing sector?
So, first of all, there's nothing wrong with our dependence on oil. It's an asset and we're proud of it. However, it's our inability to diversify and develop other sectors that is the major challenge hunting. So every time the oil fails, we do not have any buffer or any other supporting structure, and it results in drastic and very, very quick impact on the Nigerian economy. So take, for instance, just as we have crude in the southwest regions of Nigeria, we have solid minerals in the north. Chief of them is gold. We have gold, massive gold reserves in Zamfara. We have gold reserves in Plateau and all around the country. We do not see the government taking control of these sites. Rather, they are being mined by private individuals. We do not see that, contributing significantly to the nation's pulse. We have agricultural resources. We have forests. We have produce, agricultural produce. It's funny that in Nigeria we have just 2 companies responsible for manufacturing the nitrogen-based fertilizers that is being used in the country. That's Indorama and Notori. Notori is even is currently being underutilized. They are not producing at optimum. They have their challenges, and so these are some of the things that government has to look at. It's got to be practical. The government has to approach this systematically, and government has to be intentional about its approach towards diversification. However, I would say over time we've had a leadership crisis in Nigeria and misappropriation of resources. To the best of my ability, we are still very much a spend and a consumption-driven economy. So it's more important to those in leadership how to spend money rather than how to generate it, because of course to generate money you must invest money. And I think that's where we're basically lacking. So the government must put this at its front burner to develop other critical sectors. We're so blessed. Nigeria has no business having trade deficits. We don't have any business with those. We just have to look at the infrastructure that is required to develop those sectors and look at the policy frameworks that will guide and ensure compliance within those sectors and ensure that we get the maximum from those. So I think it's a problem of vision. Today, Dr. Alex Oti wants to revive the Abia industrial years. And one of the first steps, as you can see, is dealing with infrastructures. First, power. Second, logistics, road, rail. And he's taking on all of this stuff. Today, they are spending so much. But by tomorrow, we'll be telling a different story because apart from Lagos State, today already, as it were, Abia State is attracting the highest in terms of investment portfolios across Nigeria. What changed? Political will, direction, and then we can see tangible projects that are being undertaken that encourages investors to come in. So today, investors are flocking all the way to Abia State. Why? Because there's leadership, and not just leadership. We can see tangible actions that can guarantee that there's a conducive atmosphere for investors to, thrive. So I think the government should begin to be intentional towards developing this sector. I see very little or no effort. We have companies exiting the nation, and I see very little or no effort to ameliorate or prevent such. Every day we're experiencing job loss in the nation, and it just tells you that we're doing very little to help the situation. But at federal level, I think the government, and then at state level, the government can do much more than what we're currently seeing today. Thank you.
Okay, two questions. First of all, just quickly, the first is just a very small suggestion. I want to hear from your thoughts on this. Now, wouldn't it be better? You mentioned that in terms of when the government needs to ban the exportation of raw materials, and we should focus more on improving our packaged goods, what we're going to be exporting. So, for example, as you all know, we have Innocent Motors in Nigeria. Wouldn't it be better if the government actually focuses on encouraging citizens and also foreign investors to actually, even the government themselves, when buying cars, to buy Innocent Motor cars? I'm just using Innocent Motors as an example, so that we can actually encourage more Nigerian-produced things. That's the first one. Then the second one is, what role can the foreign exchange rates play in reducing Nigeria's trade deficits? Just quickly.
Yeah, so the government doesn't have to force anyone to buy Innocent Motors. The government just has to put policies in place that ensures that Innocent Motors is competitive enough in the market. Innocent Motors is not as big as Toyota. They are not as big as Volkswagen. They are not as big as Honda. So it simply means that Innocent is going to produce his car probably much more expensive than those guys do. So what do? We increase the import duty fees. We make it practically impossible. And all of these second-use cars they're dumping in Nigeria, I understand that the average Nigerian needs to be able to get mobile. Government can focus on fixing the transport infrastructure. I'm talking about public commuting services. The government can focus on much more rails, BRT buses, all of those, to ensure that people can move from point A to point B and then begin to crack down on the import of some of these vehicles. If you do that and the cost of importing a fairly used Tokumbo is equivalent to the cost of purchasing a brand new Innocent, naturally the decision for a consumer will be to go for a brand new Innocent. But if it's still cheaper to import a fairly used Tokumbo vehicle from Cotonou, then why should I go buy an Innocent? So I think it's a focus. You guide people to and help them make decisions. So first of all, the government must discourage imports by driving those fees up or totally outlawing them. Then secondly, the role that the exchange value has on this is, again, we're focusing on symptoms rather than focusing on the root cause of the problem. Every time we keep talking about exchange rate, it's so sad. I mean, given the opportunity, I wouldn't want to begin
Yes, that was Mr. Ugochukwu there. I think there's a bit of an issue with his audio quality there, but he's going to join us in a few moments. Okay, he's back right now. Yes, Mr. Ugochukwu. Yes, you were talking about the foreign exchange rate and how it's affecting our trade deficit, and the audio quality just, the audio just ceased. Can you hear me now, Mr. Ugochukwu? Okay, Mr. Ugochukwu Oguike will join us in a few moments. He's just having a bit of an issue from his own end with his audio, actually, but he will soon join us shortly. Yes, and he was actually talking about how the government needs to actually improve on its policies in terms of how to encourage more of Nigerian-made goods, Nigerian well-packaged, wholly packaged Nigerian-made goods. And then if we actually improve on that and we actually make it more expensive for people to import other items, whether it's cars, whether it's luxury goods, whether it's food items, if we make those importation items more expensive, then people will be more encouraged to patronize Nigerian-made goods. Okay, welcome back, Mr. Ugochukwu.
Yeah.
Foreign exchange rates affects our trade deficit. Can you hear me, Mr. Ugochukwu? Okay, let's go on a short break now. We'll be right back.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching
Suk News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Soap News. You don't touch that dial.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marse Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souk Enlightenment.
Welcome back. So my guest concerning today's show, how we can improve on balancing Nigeria's trade deficit, was Mr. Ugochukwu Oguike. We're joined via Zoom, and he was talking about how the government needs to put certain measures in place to encourage improvement in our local production, not just exporting raw materials, but also how to create something of standard quality that can be exported, and how we can actually increase more tariffs on imported goods so that more Nigerians will be forced to buy or patronize our locally produced goods. So thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning on Market Insight, discussing our trade deficit issue in Nigeria, Mr. Ugochukwu Ugoike, and we look forward to having you again on Market Insight. Thank you for that. So now let's take a look at our money markets for today, Monday, 11th March, how the dollar is faring against the naira, and also against the pound sterling and the euro in the money market. So the official CBN rates for the dollar is selling for today, Monday, 11th March at 1,550 naira, and in the parallel market, that's the unofficial market, the dollar is selling at 1,618 naira, and the pound sterling in official Central Bank of Nigeria rates is selling for 2,023 naira, and at the parallel market it's selling for 2,050 naira, while the euro in the official rate is 1,726 naira, at the parallel market is 1,725 naira, and as usual the parallel market rates are actually higher than the CBN rate. So those are our money market figures for this morning on Market Insights, March 11th. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So I'll discuss it with my guest how we can balance our trade deficits in Nigeria. And yes, he did give some very useful pointers, how the government needs to improve on our policy, how to improve on our locally manufactured goods, how the government should also ban exporting raw materials, exporting things like timber, gold, cotton, and we should actually focus on creating something of good quality standard that can be accepted in Western countries. That way we can actually encourage more exportation, and that way if people are bringing in foreign goods like cars and other luxury goods, and there's a high tariff when we are importing, most Nigerians will be forced to actually buy the locally produced goods. So that's our time today on Market Insight. It was a pleasure talking about our trade deficit in Nigeria, and hopefully we hope the right people are listening and we can also improve on our country's economy and move it back to where it was last year, on trade surplus. So that was our time this morning. Thank you for joining me as we talked about these issues and more issues tomorrow on Market Insight. I am your host, Lavina Emma. Stay tuned to more programs on Souk News.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of